Jane Charles here, full-time librarian at the Lee campus at FSW. I'm here to talk to you about truth seeking and what that means in terms of doing research and being an effective critical thinker. So first and foremost, we need to discuss or address what exactly is truth seeking. It's kind of a mouthful and a 5-cent phrase or idea. And here's the exact definition of truth seeking. Truth seeking is searching for the best possible solution for whatever problem, a given problem or a research question, despite what you may uncover. So that's an important part of the definition. So despite what you may learn upon reviewing the literature or your research. And the second part of this definition of truth seeking is being willing to change your opinion or even consider changing your opinion based on what you discover, based on what you learn and find out by doing research. So truth seeking is essentially doing some critical thinking. It's a domain within critical thinking, and it's a really, really important one because it's really synonymous with open-mindedness. So when you think about being a truth seeker, you want to approach whatever you're doing with an open mind. So with that said, during this workshop, I'd like to break down these different ideas and concepts. So first and foremost, we need to discuss what exactly is truth. What does it mean? And as a good librarian, I've consulted the OED, the Mother Dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary, to find definitions for these key concepts I'll be addressing. So some of these definitions are a bit dense, but bear with me. So what is truth? Truth is the quality of being true. How helpful is that? Kind of defining the word with the word. So from there, let's find out what true means. True means, quote, of a statement or belief consistent with fact, agreeing with the reality, representing the thing as it is. What does that mean? So if we go to fact, fact is that which is known or firmly believed to be known, to be real or true. What has actually happened, or in this case, truth attested to by direct observation or authentic testimony. So really, when we talk about the truth, it's something that we can verify, something that is ubiquitously widespread, accepted, universal as universal fact. So, the truth. Now, in talking about truth seeking, there are many concepts that come up that are really important to address, probe, think about, problematize. And one of them is objectivity. So I want to talk about what objectivity means and eventually its importance or role in being a good truth seeker. So the formal definition of objectivity is the ability to consider or represent facts, truth, facts, information, etc., without being influenced by personal feelings or opinions. So that's the official OED definition of objectivity. And really all it means, objectivity is striving to remove all of your stuff. So kind of setting all of your stuff to the side when you approach a problem or a research question, whatever it is, whether it's in your personal life or academics, you want to be open-minded and you want to be objective. It's not possible to be 100% objective. Humans just can't do it. We can't totally remove how we were raised, our religion, our sex, our sexuality, the color of our skin and how that affected us growing up, all those isms. You can't completely remove your life experiences. So when it comes to objectivity, and it is important, what matters is to strive to be objective. And that's a really important part of truth seeking, of being open-minded. So in addressing objectivity, we want to also talk about the other side of the coin, which is bias. So bias, what is bias? The definition of bias. Quote, a lot of 5-cent words here. An inclination, leaning, tendency, bent, preponderating disposition or propensity, predisposition towards, predilection, prejudice. And that's where you stop. So bias, prejudice. Okay, that word really sort of screams out at us. But must consider the source that we're looking at, the Oxford English Dictionary. And it's important to define what exactly is prejudice. What does that mean? Because there are really two solid definitions of prejudice today in contemporary society. So prejudice, according to the OED, preconceived opinion not based on reason or actual experience. So going back to the truth there, what's been observed, what's factual. So the first definition of prejudice is a preconceived notion or opinion. So coming to a problem or issue with an idea already in your mind, kind of an opinion that's set. Today, prejudice has another very important secondary meaning, and that's unreasoned dislike, hostility, or antagonism towards or discrimination against a particular group of people, race, class, sex. So that's certainly an important concept and something we wrestle with, we've wrestled with since time immemorial, but when I'm talking about prejudice in terms of doing research and critical thinking and truth seeking, I'm talking about that bias, approaching a problem without any fact or observed or observations. So it's important to try to certainly not be biased, but really look for bias. Look for bias in the sources that you use for your research. And that's really why I'm talking to you ultimately, is because I'm a librarian, and as a librarian, I can help you with your research, help you do your research efficiently and effectively. So all these concepts, although broad, and you should apply them to your career at school as well as beyond, I'm here to talk to you and kind of tie this into doing good, solid research for all your classes. So in talking about prejudice and bias, we also want to talk about agenda. So in terms of looking at information, you do need to consider whether a source or person or group has an agenda. An agenda is not as severe as bias. So the technical definition of agenda is an underlying intention or motive of a group or person. So it's not necessarily negative, it's just not out there. So you could be looking at a website, whatever, .org, and maybe the agenda is not upfront or clear, or maybe there are multiple agendas, and that's something to consider as well, multiple agendas. But just something to be aware of. Truth seekers are definitely aware of underlying intentions. With that, I also want to talk about assumptions. So what is an assumption? Assumptions certainly play an important role in doing good research and problematizing and critical thinking. So an assumption, the official definition. An assumption is, quote, taking for granted as the basis of an argument or action, to suppose, lots of 5-cent words here, that a thing is, to suppose that a thing is. Putting forth claims or pretensions, to claim, pretend. So really assuming, taking for granted is the important part of that definition, making an assumption. You want to hunt your assumptions and look for assumptions in what people say, and whether it's just through words or in research, what's published. So hunt those assumptions. So now, after all this going on about these lofty concepts, and I've mentioned it a bit, but why am I here, and what role does truth seeking play in doing research? Of course, as a librarian, again, I can help you with your research. That's my mission at the college. So truth seeking involves locating, selecting, using, and creating information. Locating, selecting, using, and creating information that may not support your beliefs or your opinions about something. Truth seeking requires you to ask hard questions of your sources of information and the creators of information, and to strive to objectively select sources and objectively use sources and create your information. So this all ties into doing good, sound research. So in doing good research, you need to critically evaluate the information that you retrieve, that you look for and select. So how do you critically evaluate information? And this is where we get a little bit more concrete in terms of giving you some advice. So critically evaluating information. Consider the source. Consider the author, consider the source. Very, very important. Does the source, the person or group who's created the information and put it out there, whether it's in a published book or on the free web on .com, do they have a bias? Is there an agenda? There's always an agenda of some sort, or at least a mission, right? But you need to suss that out. In terms of source types, You can consider .coms and .nets versus .gov and .edu. There are concrete ways of doing research and critically evaluating information to make your life so much easier. You can trust the information from a .gov or a .edu on the free web way more than a .com or .net, and even .org. .com's commercial, .gov is government. One of the roles of our government is to put out information to make it available to the public, and that information can include medical information, statistical information, Library of Congress, National Archives, the CDC. These are all government entities. And then you want to think about magazines and newspapers versus scholarly peer-reviewed journals, and just putting that out there, putting it into your brains to think about when a professor tells you, you must use peer-reviewed journals or refereed journals or academic scholarly, all mean the same thing. Very different from magazines and newspapers. You want to use reliable sources. And magazines and newspapers, they have a place in learning and doing research, but a magazine article is something you might use to show, what is being fed to the masses, to the populace. Scholarly articles are very different from magazines and newspaper articles. Articles that appear in scholarly journals have been vetted by fellow scholars, and it's really important to know the difference. So I'm just putting that out there right now. I'm not going into too much depth, just getting you used to these ideas. Don't forego books. Books still have a really important place in doing research, and all books are not equal. So typically, in terms of doing scholarly research, you can rely on a book that's been published by a university press, more so than others. It doesn't mean a non-university press book is incredible. Generally, you can trust what you find in an academic library. Just know that there are books out there that you want to stay away from. There is such a thing called a vanity press. And a vanity press is basically a publisher, just self-published. So if I write something and I think it's wonderful, but nobody else does, something scholarly, I could pay a publisher to publish it for me and get it out there, and it's published. It's a published work, but it's self-published, so it's not so good. And there are a lot of books that are published by vanity presses, so just something to be aware of. You can pretty much trust what you find in your library, in the FSW libraries. With that said, you should question everything. Question authority, question me, question your professors. Question everything. Use discernment. Be discerning. That's a big part of being a truth seeker. What else do I want to tell you? So why is critically evaluating information important? Why is being a critical thinker and truth seeking important? So as students, you are scholars, and that role you should take very seriously. You are scholars as long as you are students, and you're contributing to scholarship, to the world of scholarship. And you want to take pride in your work as such. You want to avoid mistakes. So being a truth seeker and critically evaluating information will help you avoid errors in your work, the work that you submit for school and beyond in your careers. So it's avoiding academic mistakes, avoiding life mistakes. Librarians, we can teach you how to research all kinds of information for your personal life, your careers, and your academic career here at FSW. So critically evaluating information is important also because information truly does empower, and knowledge empowers. And I truly, strongly, firmly believe that, and would be happy to continue this conversation with you either online or in person at the Lee Campus Library, if you so choose.